This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
And welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Our Friday edition will get you update on all your sports and what's going to be happening this weekend. Today, Jack, we got Keith Engel coming in from DJI Sports, Byron Williams, and maybe even the Phillies sports guy today. The Phillies raising Kane still in the wild card hunt. And we'll do a little boxing with you at the end of the show if we got time, which we normally always do. So let's get on to it, Jack. Last night, my Giants, you can't make no excuses, Jack. They were just beat by a better team, more talented team, better defense, better offense, better special teams. They were all over the Giants. The Giants put up a fight in the first half, but they couldn't stay with the San Francisco 49ers, Jack.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong on this. The most fundamental thing in football is tackling.
Yes.
The most fundamental thing is tackling. And you could talk about all the defensive formations you want, for the Giants, what they did, what they didn't do. The one thing they didn't do was tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, McCaffrey, Samuel, I know they're not easy to bring down, but you have your arms wrapped around them. They keep going, and it was going all night with the Giants. I mean, the tackling was atrocious. The execution, I don't want to say was bad on the Giants' part, but it was just a bad night for them. You could say all you want about how good a team the 49ers are, Mac, but the point is the Giants never looked like they were a threat to win that game at any point. So what you basically had was an elite team against an average team. And you got the feeling that the Giants have such a long way to go to be considered a legitimate playoff team. Maybe they'll get there this season because they were 9-7-1 last year. But to me, it was a disappointing night.
I agree. Good morning, Rick. You talk about tackling. Blocking is the other thing that a team has to do. And the Giants only ran for 27 yards last night against that San Francisco defense. And you would have to control the ball, go down the field, get touchdowns, not field goals, to beat a team like this. And the Giants without Saquon Barkley, without Andrew Thomas, short week, it's excuses to me. You got to be ready to play. And I think the only one that I will give credit to yesterday, Jack, was their linebacker McFadden. The guy was all over the field. He was tackling. He was putting pressure, tackling backs in the backfield, putting pressure when he blitzed on Purdy. And their defensive outside linebacker, Thibodeau, the fans are really starting to get frustrated with him, Jack. He's not doing what he was meant to do by being drafted.
Well, he was drafted way too high. I said that in the beginning. To draft him number 5 overall, I mean, I couldn't just see it. I couldn't see that being done. And we've had fun with that in a way the last year plus. But I don't want to see Thibodeau do poorly per se, But I think part of the problem, too, is attitude. Thibodeau is being played out of position according to how he feels. He considers himself an edge rusher, someone who likes to go after the quarterback, being like a prime time player. You saw he got 1 sack yesterday. Mac, that was so deceiving. What had happened, the Giants flushed Brock Purdy out of the pocket, the other defensive lineman, and Thibodeau was standing there about a yard past the line of scrimmage, and Purdy essentially ran into his arms, and Thibodeau brought him down. Officially, you have to call it a sack. Mike, it's like a pitcher giving up 8 runs after 5 innings, but his team's up 12-8 and they win the game, and he gets the W in the box score. I mean, it looks good that he got the W. So if you look at the box score, Thibodeau had the only Giant full sack. There were 2 half sacks in there, but it was pretty deceiving. But I could tell he feels they're playing him out of position. But listen, the effort was there. I was watching his body language. He was trying to stay focused on defense. but they're going to have to figure out what to do. The question arises, do you set up formations to your players' strengths, or do you expect them to adjust? In Thibodeau's case, they expect him to adjust, and he's not adjusting too well. You mentioned the running back Saquon Barkley there. We're seeing all across the NFL, these teams were losing running backs like Cleveland with Nick Chubb signing Kareem Hunt. All of a sudden, we're seeing how valuable these running backs are, how they can affect the game. And the talk of you could just plug them in as long as you have a good offensive line. But guess what, Mac? Hardly anyone has a good offensive line in the NFL. So the running back's ability to create plays is as important as ever.
I agree. The official stats from last night, of course, the Giants dropped to 1-2. The 49ers go up to 3-0. Brock Purdy, efficient, 25 of 37, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. McCaffrey gets a rushing touchdown with 85 yards. Debo, 6 receptions for 139 yards. That's what you were talking about, them not tackling well for a TD. Daniel Jones goes 22 for 32, 137 yards and 1 interception. Breida gets the only touchdown, but he only picked up, I said 27 before. He only picked up 17 yards. This again, Jack, this was a game. I do a matchup game, NFL matchup, where the Giants had to get turnovers, and it went the other way. The 49ers got the turnovers, and I was hoping for them to do a couple trick plays, maybe a flea flicker, an end around, a fake punt, something to spark them, and they never did that. They just went back, expected Jones to throw them to a win, and against a 49er defense with that front four, that's almost impossible to do, Jack.
It's how Daniel Jones was under a lot of pressure, and he couldn't even really use his legs to run effectively throughout the night. You saw him trying to survive a good amount of the time, and Darren Waller, their tight end, wasn't really bailing him out. But I was more disappointed in the Giant defense, not so much the effort, but just the tackling. The tackling was horrendous, throughout the game. But early in the game, the Giants were doing some good things. Brock Purdy was trying to stretch the field early in the game. The Giant corners were playing really well. Purdy was off target, and that should have been a strategy. Make Brock Purdy beat you. Yeah. Don't put yourself in a position where you have to beat McCaffrey, Samuel, and Kittle. Yeah. If you put yourself in a position where you have to beat the big three, you're usually not going to beat them because they're about the best trio in the NFL. You won't find a better big three than those. And early in the game, Purdy was nearly intercepted a couple of times. He was lucky he wasn't. And then Purdy settled down. He dumped off a lot of short passes, a lot of handoffs, and something about the Giant formations. They should have set it up, even if you stack the box somewhat, and force Purdy to throw downfield, even if the corners have no help. You keep him under that pressure and see whether he could do it. Challenge him to do it. They did it early in the game, and they did it effectively, and then the wheels kind of came off.
I agree. So let's get into the Major League Baseball playoff news. And as I said,
you're a Giant fan, Mac. You gave the Giant game the minimum amount of time, and now you're moving on. Had they won that game yesterday, we'd still be talking about it, Mac.
You are correct. I'm not going to argue with you, Jack. That's like
it's like you couldn't wait to get off the Giants. It was like you were obligated to talk about them. Because it would look bad. Imagine you start this show with the Yankees. But okay, but speaking of MLB, I'm going to tell you, Mac. During the Giant game, I have a confession to make. I would sometimes quickly turn the channel. And let me tell you why I quickly turned the channel. Because Garrett Cole had a perfect game going into the 6th inning. And after he had a perfect game going for 4 innings, I'm thinking, this might be interesting. So I'm watching part of the 5th inning. Between pitches, of course, I go back to the Giant game. Sure. And then in the 6th inning, when he loses the perfect game, then I move on. Then I'm not watching the Yankee game anymore. Then it's all the Giant game.
There you go. Yeah, my sister texted me and she goes, "Can you believe that?" or something. And And I'm like, yeah, I'm watching it. She was talking about the Yankees. She's a big avid Yankee fan too. And I was watching the Giant game. I always thought she was talking about the Giants. But anyway, my sister.
Perfect game, Giants.
No.
Come on.
This was a week ago when they were playing, when they came from behind. She sent me that. So again, if we get to where the NL and AL are at right now, if the season finishes or it just keeps going this way, you have Atlanta and the Braves and the Dodgers getting the byes. The wild card teams right now would be Milwaukee versus Chicago and Philly at Arizona. In the AL, we have Baltimore and Houston with the byes. The wild card series would be Minnesota at Texas, Tampa Bay at Toronto. One of these wild cards in both divisions, Jack, which one would you pick that would have a real good chance at going to the World Series?
Mac, you're giving how it would be if the season ended today. These teams are like a game within one another, half game within one another. You're saying, oh, well, Toronto would go. What is Seattle? Seattle, what are they, a game behind, a half game behind?
Half a game.
Whatever. And Tampa Bay is right on Baltimore's trail, if I'm not mistaken. Are they a game behind, or are they even, or what?
I think they're a game and a half, Jack, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, but it's far from
it's far from over. Far from over.
Yes, no. I mean, we can talk safely as far as Atlanta getting the bye, the Dodgers getting the bye. We understand that now, the way it's set up. We know Minnesota's going to win their division. That's obvious. We could kind of analyze those teams. The one team that could be, we're talking about a real dark horse, but they're not a wild card. People are getting the feeling maybe Milwaukee's going to have a breakthrough finally.
Yeah.
Not get really dismissed. But with the wild card teams, I mean, you got Cincinnati, you got Houston, but I would think one of the wild card teams would be between Texas, Seattle. Houston might be a wild card team, Mac. Houston might not even make the playoffs if they hit a little slump.
That could be most of the teams are like that, Jack. Most teams are like that. What I'm saying is, like, to me, there's a surprise team, Arizona Diamondbacks. This team people have counted out since the beginning, and I think that they have enough to maybe get up there and challenge the Braves, to challenge the Dodgers, whoever they're going to play in the end. And I also I still like my Toronto pick. I think Toronto has a chance. They got enough weapons to make a run here at the end and maybe get to the World Series. So that's what I'm talking about. If there's any wild card team that you think that has a real opportunity, as it is now, to get to the World Series.
Toronto's disappointed me in the past. I didn't pick them this year. I picked them last year to go to the World Series. Vlad Guerrero's had an off year. He went from being one of the elite players in baseball to just a very good player this year, nothing more. When they signed George Springer from the Astros, what was it, like 3 years ago? Springer, he's been a decent player. He's an excellent defender. He gives them a bit of a spark, but he hasn't really been the elite player Toronto was hoping to get. Toronto's one of these teams, you kind of feel a little bit unfulfilled potential. Maybe they'll get it during the playoffs. And then you look at a team like the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, all their young players seem to be gelling. I mean, you look at, even their outfield defense, Mullins, Santana, they just play the game the right way. And, but when you say wild card team, sometimes it's hard to distinguish a wild card team in division winners, because outside of really the Dodgers, the Braves, Minnesota, I guess Milwaukee, in a couple of the divisions, it's very much up for grabs between, division winners, wild cards, and who's going to make the playoffs, like, all together. Last year, the Phillies were the surprise team.
Right.
Would the Phillies be considered a surprise team again? And in a way, yes, Mac, because the consensus is that the Braves are the favorites. The Dodgers are in with a legitimate shot, even though the Dodgers starting rotation, that's what has been a strength of theirs year after year after year. Has these little question marks this year that it hasn't had for a long time. But when you get past the Braves and the Dodgers, the Phillies have the personnel, but it would be a little bit of a surprise if they went back to the World Series.
I think they beat the Dodgers last year to get to the World Series. They got the potential. They definitely got the bats. Biggest question mark will be, will their rotation hold up during these games? And if you're going to go the old way, like Murderer's Row of the Yankees, Jack, hitting at that time during that season beat pitching. So we'll see what happens with the Phillies this year. Some MLB players that have had great seasons for their teams that we don't really hear about a lot because we're out here on the East Coast and we're talking Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, and the Phillies a lot. But here's some of the guys that if you look at, really stand out for their teams and why their teams are in contention. The Arizona outfielder Corbin Carroll hitting .281, 24 home runs, 72 RBIs, and his base stealing threat is one of his biggest assets for that team. So that's one of the
good fielder too.
Very good
defensively, yeah.
Atlanta, of course, was not a surprise, but Ronald Acuna is having a huge year over there for them, Jack. He's batting .338 with 39 home runs and 100 RBIs.
What about Matt Olson, their first baseman? 53,
Unbelievable. Yes.
Well over 100 runs batted in.
50 home runs.
Yeah, he's even hitting around 270 for average too, and he gets on base. He gets on base a lot. Matt Olson, to me, would be the MVP this year. I think Acuna is going to get more votes than he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
And the MVP race in the National League is going to be pretty interesting. For a while, it looked like Mookie Betts was going to get it, but Mookie Betts has kind of cooled down a little bit. I think Acuna would barely be the front runner right now. When if the vote came down, when the Braves got Matt Olson, they got him as a result of losing Freddie Freeman. There was a contract mix-up where Freddie Freeman later fired his agents. The Braves had offered Freddie Freeman $140 million for 5 years. Freeman's agent wanted to see whether they could get more. There was a miscommunication, and the Braves just moved on. Freeman went to the Dodgers, and I got to point out Freeman has played extremely well for the Dodgers these past 2 years. Last year, he barely lost out on the batting title. This year, he's hitting .333, and he's been an absolute rock for the LA Dodgers. He's played on a Hall of Fame level for the 2 years they've gotten him. So Matt Olson was with the Oakland Athletics. So that Atlanta turned around, and they made a deal, and they got Matt Olson. And Matt Olson, what's interesting, he's an Atlanta boy. That's where he was from. He was a homegrown guy. And even though Freddie Freeman was adopted by Atlanta as one of their own, and Freeman loved playing for Atlanta, Olson comes over. He signs for $21 million a year. I think it was 7 years. So they locked him up to a deal long term. And even the Braves, I think he's produced way beyond what they expected. I think they expected Matt Olson to be maybe a 30 to 35 homer guy a year, driving close to 100 runs, play a decent first base, that type of player. But he's given them a superstar performance this year, like a legitimate superstar.
Yeah. I mean, that was a good move by them when that deal fell through with Freeman. Of course, that was because of his agent. The Baltimore Orioles shortstop, Gunnar Henderson, Jack. Now, this is for a shortstop's batting .261, 27 home runs, and 80 RBIs. Again, if you're not watching Baltimore, these are some of the players on these teams that we don't hear about being on the East Coast. So that's one of the good Baltimore. Of course, they have
Mac, you mentioned Baltimore. Their young players, some of the other teams. It's always interesting when you have a cast-off from one team. He joins a franchise who at that moment has such a great culture and is contending for the playoffs, and there's a lot of energy there, and the performance gets better. Aaron Hicks is hitting over 290 since he's went from the Yankees to Baltimore. They've been using him. He's been a good player for Baltimore, and they got him for next to nothing.
Yes.
I mean, I'm even Miguel Andujar knocked in 3 runs for the Pirates yesterday. He's hitting 275. The Yankees discarded him. Will he help the Yankees at third base this year? I mean, I'm not sure how he would have performed. I mean, you're just looking at some of these guys, from teams. They go to another team, and all of a sudden, Mike Tauchman, who played outfield for the Yankees, he's with the Chicago Cubs, performing well, helping them, and the Cubs in the playoff hunt. But the Cubs better start winning, otherwise they're not going to the playoffs. It seemed like they were locked to go a week and a half ago, and then they hit a little losing patch.
Well, Jack, you brought up the word culture. I don't think the Yankees culture is like these. These teams seem excited about playing baseball. They got a youth movement going on, and that's catchy. If you go to a team that's always under the gun, where the fans are booing you, there seems to be a disconnect between the coach and the team. The GM is being ridiculed all the time. I mean, how can you play baseball at a fun level? And that's what I was hoping for with the Yankees when all the kids first started coming up. They were playing. The Yankees were playing better. They're still playing better than they did earlier, but there's always that culture that will bring you down if you let it. So this is why I think the players going to these different teams are being a little successful with them. Even Donaldson had another home run, and the players there said he's great in the clubhouse. He brings fun to the clubhouse. So maybe that's it. Instead of trying to put somebody down for the way they act in the clubhouse, maybe they're having too much fun, and you're more business, like in the Yankees are always have been since the Jeter days, all about business. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes you got to have fun, Jack. And I think that's what's making these players better.
Well, part of the problem with the Yankee culture is people are living in the past. Even a couple of our colleagues we're very fond of, who are very, very knowledgeable, like Dr. Paul Semending and Keith Engel. Yeah. They're holding to the mission statement. It's championship of the year hasn't been successful. Right. And how many teams are winning championships with that attitude? The Dodgers, one of the most successful franchises in sports, they've only won 1 championship since 1988. The Atlanta Braves, who are the favorites at this moment to win the championship, have only won 1 World Series since 1995. And it might be a long time before the New York Football Giants, even contending for one. But that's a good reading.
Good morning to Byron Williams, our NFL analyst, who's live from his Hall of Fame room there that he has where he does the show from now. You see Lawrence Taylor's jersey in the background.
We talk about athletes, they have to be placed in right positions. I never would have let Byron play football if I was in charge of his athletic career. I would have just had him run track. He would have been good. He would have been real good.
Thank you for that, Jack. I appreciate it.
He would have been an outstanding track man. I mean, no complications, no injuries. Well, not the type of injuries that would put you out for that long.
No.
Yeah, it was fun running track, but it's just something about playing football just fulfill you when you can score a touchdown against somebody or run by somebody, and then you can talk a little noise to them as well. But track, if you fast, everybody know you fast. But in football, it's a little bit more challenging and stuff. But
as we're talking about running in football, let's start off with Justin Fields. Justin Fields kind of blamed the coaches, for his play. He kind of said he felt robotic, then he kind of took it back. But I think, if you look at the Chicago Bears culture, we were just talking about culture when it comes to the front office, to the coaches, there's always problems, Byron and Jack. And that goes back before Trubisky. I mean, the GM and coaches have been on a carousel since the Bears were good back in the 80s, for God's sakes. So Justin Fields, they're trying to keep him in the pocket. They want him to throw the ball from the pocket. And as you see, he's having a lot of problems. And they picked up more, and they thought, well, here we go. We got somebody for him to throw to. Justin Fields right now is not that type of quarterback. What he was a weapon for Chicago, one quick read, and he was running. And, to take that away from him, especially right now when they're still building a team, to me is crazy. That's your weapon. That's what you use right now. That's what's going to keep you in games and win you games, not sitting back in the pocket waiting for more to get open and holding on to the ball, Byron.
Absolutely. You got to be able to utilize the strength of an athlete, and his athletic ability is to move, run, and not be a pocket passer. He gonna probably learn that later on, but right now, that's not what he's good at. He can't do that. And another thing is having confidence. He probably don't have confidence in his offensive lineman and a couple of things like that. So, and then the consistency of them being not able to bring a team in and bring certain types of player into your organization to help establish what you need to do. I mean, Chicago, since they hadn't done anything since they won the Super Bowl in 1985. So it's really sad that they don't understand that you got to get the right combination of people in there. You got to get some leaders in there, and then you got to use the strength of your players, and that's what they're not doing.
I think with Justin Fields, the Bears have to play to his strength.
Yeah.
If he likes to run, let him run. I mean, the coaches are so timid and so scared their quarterbacks are going to get hurt. Well, the quarterbacks have to know when to go down. Okay, that's the main thing. That they should coach that more than anything, and to try to make Justin Fields strictly a pocket quarterback because they got DJ Moore. Now, Moore might be unhappy, so the coaches are worrying about the receivers being unhappy. Well, the coaches just have to put the players in their place. What are the players going to do? Not show up for work and not get paid? Just tell the player what's expected, and the player has to adhere and make that adjustment in case closed. But it's starting to get a bit ugly for Justin Fields in Chicago. I mean, they got him additional protection for the offensive line, but the offensive line is still shaky. But how many teams have a really good offensive line? I mean, all these quarterbacks, they have these issues that's why you're not living in an era anymore of strictly the pocket quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, good morning to Philly Sports Guy Pags. Jamie Pags, glad to have you in early as we're talking about NFL news. If you look at the running quarterbacks in football, you've got, of course, Jackson, who they built a team around. You have your quarterback over there in Philadelphia, who at first was a running quarterback, and he learned to become a passing quarterback. But they played to his strengths at first. And with Fields, they're trying to make him something he's not. And if they continue to do that, Chicago's not going to win too many games this year.
Well, and you know what? Defenses know how to defend against that. You have to be a very unique athlete. There are not many Cunninghams, Vicks, even Fields. Like Fields has got it, and same with Hurts. But Hurts this year has not been able to run the ball. He's been bottled up by these defenses, and especially after week one, where we saw Belichick really defend well against that whole process, and everybody is going to take a page from that book. And it's very similar. It's very similar to do it for each one of those quarterbacks. It's all you have to do is be able to contain them on the outsides. Let them not get on the outsides and give most of your rush through the center, and you're going to be able to get some, success with that. And I think that that's part of the manual to stop that.
Well, I think the biggest problem with Chicago right now is not even just Justin Fields; it's the front office and the coaching staff. The GM hires a coach that gets fired, and this other coach comes in, and this new GM comes in. He didn't draft Fields, and the coach didn't like Trubisky. I mean, there's always been some kind of circus up there between the coaching office and the GM, and I think this is an owner problem. The owner's got to
Max, the
come in.
GMs are
He has
given
his
too much
GM, when the
power,
GM
Max.
slows, and then the coach. I'm just saying, Jack, you've got to have some kind of order. You can't just, they didn't trade. They could have traded Fields in the beginning of the year. They could have traded for a first-round draft choice or whatever they wanted to. They passed that up. They kept Fields, and not to use. I mean, what he did last year, running the ball, was unbelievable. How he got out of the pocket, ran that ball. That's his strength. And I think this coach this year says, no, we want you to be a passing quarterback, and it's just not working.
Mac, it would have been the same thing had they traded Justin Fields. It would have been the type of thing where they then would have used their number one pick in either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. It would have been the same situation.
But it would have been their guy, Jack. It would have been their guy. You know what I'm saying? And when a coach or GM, when that's your guy, you're going to work with them more. You're going to be more patient with them. You're going to bring them along. When it's not your guy, it's not the same. Right? Byron could tell you that. I know that's true. If Phil Simms wasn't Parcells' guy or George Young's guy, Phil Simms wouldn't have stayed there that long. He would have been.
Yeah, we knew exactly that. Phil Simms was the quarterback. We never had controversy about Phil Simms, and that was a good thing about it. The order, and everything was set for us to build that team around Phil Simms and of course Lawrence Taylor. It was their teams.
But is it not true? I mean, I kind of feel that running quarterbacks have to be in the league for about 3 to 4 years before they start to transition to become a passing quarterback. They have to get a good feel for the league, and you just can't do it in a year or two. You have to have like 3 or 4 years of experience before you could start to realize, well, one, that your mind catches up to the speed of the game for the passing game, not necessarily the running game, because you're so used to running the ball all the time that when you start to try to become a passer too early, and I feel like this was early in Donovan's career, Donovan McNabb, when he wasn't as astute in the passing game as he was to run. And it took 3 or 4 years. And I feel like that's the same trajectory that Fields is on. It's almost the same trajectory that the quarterback from Baltimore, same situation. That he's needed that 3 or 4 years to be able to say, okay.
Lamar Jackson was a league MVP. He didn't need all that time. Lamar Jackson
he was the league MVP because he ran the ball, not because he was a passer.
What does it matter? As long as you advance the ball, what does it matter how you do it?
Well, I'm saying that to be able to transition from a running quarterback to do more on the passing game rather than always be a running quarterback, you need time. That comes with time, and it doesn't come with.
Jack, he was an MVP, but he also got hurt. And he also hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. So, I mean,
how many teams win Super Bowls? I mean, you can't evaluate on that. Certain quarterbacks, like a Justin Fields, he was a bit erratic at Ohio State. I mean, he would have some so-so games in college, too. So he wasn't considered a sure thing. Trevor Lawrence was considered a sure thing. Trevor Lawrence, to me, has been a little disappointing, but his trajectory towards a top-notch quarterback is still there. Okay, he's still improving. So Trevor Lawrence might be an old-time case. It might take him like 5 years before he's an outstanding quarterback, but he's getting there little by little. Justin Fields might never get there. Sure. I mean, no one wants to really consider that.
Listen, it's true, but again, Jack, if you don't have the right people in place above Justin Fields, he's never going to get there. If you don't have an offensive coordinator that's going to utilize his running, you're not going to get there. I mean, to me, there's always an order of organization that either makes your team good or makes it not good. And right now, Chicago doesn't have that organization. So let's get on to Nick Chubb. We talked about running backs earlier. The running backs they're getting injured a lot, and that's nothing new. But when Nick Chubb is taken away from the Cleveland Browns, that's their number one offensive weapon. Now, Micah Fitzpatrick had to defend himself, saying he's not a dirty player because of the hit on Chubbs. And I watched the tape. All he did was come from the side and hit him to bring him down. He didn't intentionally try to break the guy's knee. So what do you guys think about the running back and the effect that the running backs are gonna have in the next few years as you're slowly seeing teams starting to run the ball again more? San Francisco does it. Tennessee does it. The Eagles are doing it. The Cowboys are doing it. So, I mean, the teams that are successful are going to be running the ball more now, guys.
But, you know, one of the things that happened back in the day, they used to have a fullback and more blocking protection for the running backs. But now that's tending to ease away. You know, you got eight wide receivers, you got 5 tight ends now. So the game doesn't change. It's a run pass option. It used to be a run pass option, more like pass option run. And so that is definitely, you can see that change in the game, and it's a whole different game. And people they hardly ever run the ball. We used to pass the ball, 30% of the time. Now it's flipped. It's passing more 70% versus running the ball. But these running backs just don't have that extra protection, that extra running back, the fullback, so to speak, there to help them as well. So they're more able to hit more, and so people are coming at it at different angles.
Go ahead, Pack.
And I was going to say there's an evolution to the running back that's occurring, and nobody really wants to admit it this way, but Atlanta was really ahead of the curve when they put Cordarrelle Patterson as their running back, and then San Francisco took that and said, okay, we're going to do the same thing with Deebo Samuel. Now, there are still some good running backs out there, but the running back is becoming that 5th wide receiver. That's what that's becoming, and it's you're seeing that start to evolve in that way, where running backs, like the Eagles have 3 running backs that do that, but they all got to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. It was one of the reasons why they got rid of Sanders, because he wasn't good at catching the ball out of the backfield. So it feels as this keeps going, you're going to see that running back position really become the 5th wide receiver.
Well, what I think, Pags, and I agree with you to a point. McCaffrey can catch the ball in the backfield. Barkley, when he's healthy, can do that. What I'm saying is the Eagles' offensive line, which is physical and big, going up against these smaller defensive linemen and six defensive backs, they're saying, hey, we're going to run the ball against you now. And I think other teams are going to start doing that because the drafting has been swayed to pass rushers, lighter guys, fast linebackers, and a lot of defensive backs, and this is all to coverage and rush the passer. If I'm an offensive coordinator and I got a line like the Eagles have, or some of the bigger lines in the league, I'm going to run the ball down your throat and stop me, and they won't be able to. And that's what I'm talking about. You know, it's going to recycle. It always does. You know, they got the big guys to stop the run. Well, we're going to pass the ball. I think, and you can count the quarterbacks in that as well. So Kareem Hunt has gone back to the Cleveland Browns with the injury to Chubbs. He's got a nice little contract there too, because Chubbs is gone for the year at least. He may have to have his leg amputated from what I was reading. I don't know how that's working out.
He got like $4 million, Kareem Hunt, which isn't a nice little contract by today's
nice little
standards.
contract. I think as a free agent running back, Jack, I think it's a nice little contract. I mean, This is a spur of the moment thing. So, and Kareem Hunt played for the Browns, so he knows the Browns system. And I think that was a great pickup for the Browns. Deshaun Watson.
They got bigger problems there. That's their problem over in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson is not.
What's going on with him? After that massage scandal, I don't know if it's the pressure. I have no idea what happened to this man. This man was a top 5 quarterback when he first came to the league. Now he can't throw the ball at all. Byron.
Sounds a little funny, but isn't he playing a little tight?
Byron, what's going on? Is it the receivers in Cleveland? What is it?
It's really not the receiver. It's just something is missing with him. I don't know what he went through. Something off the field must have happened to him, and he don't forget where he came from. It really looked really bad. I mean, I talked to some people that's really close up there in that organization, and they said that he still got a long way to go. So it really sad that what happened to him. But you can just tell you you got to be around the right people all the time, and just to, stay focused on your craft. And but it's sad to see that he's not where he should be. I mean, they made a big mistake trying to sign him for sure.
Well, we can't say it's a big mistake yet. It's important to note that Deshaun Watson really never wanted to go to Cleveland, and he had originally ruled Cleveland out, and then Cleveland came back with $230 million guaranteed, and then all of a sudden, he's going to Cleveland because that was the best deal he was going to get.
Right.
So, but is it a case of him just being rusty a little bit or whatever? But he did play last year, so he should have shook the rust off. He had training camp. I think Deshaun Watson is going to be all right. I think we're judging him a little too soon on this comeback.
Well,
by the end of the year, I think he's going to be back to at least close to his old self.
Well, in the league and NFL, you don't have a whole lot of time to try to make adjustment. It's really, you need to go in and play to your potential. And his expectations have been very low right now. That's the way I see it.
Well, they're 1-1, so it's not exact. Yeah.
Well, it's not because of him. Pags. So what did the Cleveland Browns do? They got him signed to a guaranteed, 5-year contract to $250 billion, whatever he's making. I mean, what did the Cleveland Browns do with him?
Deal with it. That's what they do. They deal with it. They don't have a response. They're stuck now. This is the reason why certain franchises do well and certain franchises get stuck with their situations. Cleveland is one of those situations. They went against the grain. They gave this guy all this money, and you saw all their NFL teams are like, we are not going to do this. We are not going to do this with our quarterbacks. And everybody said that contract was an outlier. We're not going to pay these quarterbacks that type of money because it's not smart to do. And now Cleveland is learning again that they did something maybe.
Wait, Cleveland, you're talking like this was an experiment with Deshaun Watson that failed. I mean, last year was just getting the rust off after the suspension. And you yourself, Pack, said you felt he was going to be much better this year. It's only been 2 games. They're 1-1 at home against Tennessee Sunday. If they lose to Tennessee at home, Cleveland, and he plays a poor game, Deshaun Watson, now I'm going to start getting concerned. But I don't think that's going to be the case.
What did I read yesterday? That he is off on his passes like 20% of the time. It's like maybe 24% of the time. The most he ever had was like 17%. And now he's like 24, 25%. And that's a big deal that he's way off on his passes. That means he's not paying attention, or he's not leading the team, or he's not putting in the work.
They have Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore as their key receivers at Cleveland. Amari Cooper, as Byron could say, isn't the most focused receiver at times. I mean, there's something about him kind of throws you off. And Elijah Moore, the Jets moved on from Elijah Moore.
See this, Jack? Penalty flag for you, saying Byron would say Amari Cooper isn't a good wide receiver.
I think Byron, no, I didn't say he's not a good wide receiver. He's not the most focused wide receiver.
He's not outspoken. He's not outspoken. He laid back. He's laid back, but he don't show no emotion or nothing like that. So to me, he just needs to get more of that kind of.
Hey, listen, and not for nothing, but as they went in, as he got traded over there, he made a statement about Watson. And I still that statement still resonates. I know that time heals all that stuff, and I'm sure they spoke about it, and it's no longer there. But I got to imagine he still thinks about stuff like that. He wasn't sure, and he specifically called out Watson for some of Watson's personal practices. And I'm not going to express that, but
what I think if I was the owner of Cleveland, I would set him up with a massage parlor to relax him more.
Come on,
and maybe he will play, but maybe he's not relaxed, Jack. Maybe he has a problem. I don't know. All I know is Deshaun Watson.
Maybe you got the problem, Matt.
Maybe
He doesn't have the
Deshaun
problem.
Watson.
It's only been 2 games.
Maybe
They're
Deshaun
1-1.
Watson. He's good. They're going to get beat again, Jack. If you
I
watch
agree with you, Matt. I
if
agree
you
with you,
watch,
Matt.
are you watching the Cleveland Browns play? Do you watch the games? I have.
I did.
Deshaun Watson isn't reading the defense right. He throws her off. He doesn't. He looks lost out there. And I don't know. Wes, yes.
This is what me and you need to do. We need to send a note up to Cleveland Brown and say, give him a massage an hour before the game.
There you go. Relax the man. Maybe he needs to relax. Maybe there's too much. Jack, I don't know. I'm not even being funny. Maybe this is what the guy needs to do to relax before a game.
2 games in. They're playing Tennessee at home.
And they're going to lose.
Not a good team, even though they beat your LA Chargers, who you, Mac, predicted
Tennessee,
to go to the Super Bowl.
I'll tell you right now, Tennessee will beat Cleveland and Cleveland. I'm telling you right now.
Deshaun Watson will take care of business Sunday, and he'll get a reprieve from you guys. You won't even talk about him the following week. You want to wait to see whether
I don't know. I'll bet you on that.
And then you have Pags sounding off. You have Pags sounding off. Pags has enough problems in Eagle Land with A.J. Brown and Hurts not on the same page. It's starting to unravel.
Hey, I don't hear anything from you until the Jets eventually beat the Eagles once. All they got to do is beat us once, and then I'll start listening to you. Until that happens, I don't think you have anything to say about football.
They'll get their chance. They play late in the season.
Yes, they do. And a great segue. Let's talk about the Jets. The Jets fans are crying out for Kirk Cousins. They want him to do a deal to get Kirk Cousins for this 1 year.
I called that one.
You did. But the coaching staff says we're going to stick with Zach Wilson. Jack, how much longer are they going to stick with Zach Wilson?
I think the people I'm going to watch my tongue because Pax is one of them. I'm going to be diplomatic. It's not realistic of Kirk Cousins going to the Jets. I don't like to talk about things that aren't realistic. Cousins is in the last year of his contract. The only way it becomes realistic is this way, guys. If Aaron Rodgers definitely is not coming back, and the Jets are willing to sign Kirk Cousins to a huge extension that's going to be for a few years.
I think that is absolutely the wrong way of thinking about that.
You're not even talking to the Vikings about Kirk Cousins. This is a figment of your imagination.
It's no figment. It's no figment. I tell you, when you watch the Vikings go 0-3 and you watch the Jets fall apart again this week, you're going to see that talk really start to heat up. I thought it would happen this week. On my show, I was talking to True, and True thinks it's going to happen by week 4. The Jets are going to need to do something to keep their fan base intact. And this is the 1 year, this is the stopgap right now to be able to make that happen. You got Kirk Cousins, you bring him in here for a year, you get rid of him at the end of the year because he's a free agent. You just deal with his contract. You trade, actually, my thought is that you trade Zach Wilson over to the Vikings and you give him a 3rd or a 4th round pick, and they start to figure out whether Zach can be a player over in Vikings, because if they don't work that out, they can just go ahead and draft a quarterback. And then you see that they start to try to repair and see if they can make something happen with the Jets this year, because they got everything in place now except the quarterback. And Kirk Cousins has at least got the aura around him that he could lead a team to the playoffs.
The deal itself isn't a bad deal that you're proposing, but the problem, Pags, and you think short term all the time. What happens if Kirk Cousins does a pretty good job for the Jets? What happens at the end of the season?
If short of him winning the Super Bowl or getting to the Super Bowl, even if he was to get to the Super Bowl, then you got an issue on your hands. But beyond that, if he just makes it to the playoffs and loses in a playoff game, Aaron Rodgers gets you past that point. So unless you make it to the Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins, you have the out. And then Kirk, and it does well for both players there. Kirk Cousins gets his next contract, and you got your next quarterback to maybe lead you beyond where he brought you, because that was what your thought was originally. That's why I feel like this is a win-win for both sides, but they both got to – the Vikings got to lose again this week, and
If
the
the
Jets got to
Vikings
lose
are
this
playing
week.
the Chargers at home, so if the Vikings win, would they even consider trading Kirk Cousins if they
It becomes
win?
more of a challenge. It becomes more of a challenge.
So let's get to the Mac Jones. Byron, you know about how important a good offensive coordinator is, playing on Ron Earhart those years you were there. Bill O'Brien seems to have the offense of the Patriots playing good fun. I mean, a lot better than last year. Let's just put it that way. I mean, they played against two real tough teams. He's playing pretty well. Of course, the Patriots defense is always good under Bill Belichick for the most part. So what do you think? They're going to come up. I'm going to get Keith's, of course, Keith's little thought on this too, but I want to get your thought. What do you think about the Patriots' chances of beating the Jets this week?
I like the Patriots' chances of beating the Jets. They hadn't beaten in the last 4 games. I mean, Belichick always have a good scheme against the Jets, and they seem like they got their numbers every in the last 14 games. I think they 14-0 against the Jets. The Jets somehow cannot beat the Patriots. So I think this is going to be a good chance for the Patriots to win this week.
Well, Pags is about to throw in his 2 cents, but I got to remind you, I was listening to a show yesterday on the Northeast Streaming Network. Pags was on. Pags predicted the Giants were going to beat the 49ers, and I commented, don't listen to Pags on that game. Pags
I thought that there was a chance that they could upset them. It was a Thursday
You're
night.
sounding like Mac now, going from predicting something to saying
sometimes you got to stick your neck out there. You said the Jets were going to the Super Bowl. Guess what? They ain't going to win a game.
The Bengals were winning the AFC. No, I didn't. I said the Bengals were 0-2, and I'm still sticking with the Bengals to win.
I think the Patriots probably win their first game this week. So
let me say this. This is the storyline the Jets Patriots.
Byron. Okay, go ahead, Jack. I'll let you get that in quick. I want to get the Byron's thoughts on the
Patriot game. It's probably going to be a low-scoring game. The Jet defense should rise to the occasion. They played poorly against Dallas. They're going to be up for the game, their defense. So the Patriots are going to score a lot. If the Jets lose the game and Zach Wilson is the reason, it gets ugly, because Zach Wilson wasn't the reason the Jets lost to the Cowboys. It was a team effort. I mean, all around. The defense should be happy Zach Wilson was there to get the play.
Quarterback wins and losses has never been a quarterback's stat. Their stats are what they do as far as passing yards and all that. If the team don't win, you can keep all your stats. Byron, let's get to some of the let's get to the top 10 wide receivers, and we'll talk more about it when Keith comes on. So the top 10 receivers they got ranked out there right now. Number 1 is Justin Jefferson, Byron, followed by Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb. You mentioned them; they're moving him around now, where he's not just staying in one spot under coverage. They're moving him so he can get open more. AJ Brown, even though he didn't have a good a week last week. Jamar Chase, and you have Tyler Lockett, Brandon Ayuk, who was hurt against the Giants. Mike Evans, him and Baker Mayfield have been hooking up over there. And the last one, which I want to talk to you about, is the rookie receiver for San Francisco, who caught 15 passes in one game, set a record. Try to remember his name now. It's a difficult name to pronounce. I can't get his name right now.
Is that Ayuk?
No, not Ayuk.
Yes,
it was.
Yes.
Mac misread the list. Mac didn't look carefully.
It's like Pazu. It's like a Pazu something or other. But anyway, this was unexpected. The Rams have been playing good football. I think they had 30-23 against the 49ers the week before. And this little wide receiver came out of nowhere. When Cooper Kupp gets back, who knows, Byron? They may be battling for that top spot.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be able to use both of them. They both, I mean, Cooper Kupp are just amazing. I just can't say nothing's bad about Cooper Kupp, but I think they'll just plug the other receiver in at the other side, or either utilize him in motion and things like that, which will add more horsepower to their offense. So I don't see it being a conflict once Cooper Kupp come back. But I just think that this receiver have had a tremendous he'll set already records for the first 2 games in the NFL. I think 25 catches or something like that.
And how about them trading Cam Akers? How about that trade?
Where did Matt get this list?
Yeah.
I'm curious. Matt saying a list came out. Whose list is this? Whose list leaves out
Bleacher
Garrett
Report.
Wilson?
Bleacher
That
Report.
makes no sense.
This was Frank Laterzo's list.
Exactly.
That was Laterzo.
Who's?
Laterzo.
Did you say Sonny Liston?
I said it was Frank's list. Of the top 10
Garrett
receivers.
Wilson isn't on that list. It makes no sense. It doesn't have any credibility.
No, he hasn't.
Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson.
No, he's not on that list.
Nothing on that list.
But you know what? I think it's about 15.
Jack,
It's a second
he's
year.
a rookie.
He's not a rookie.
Second-year wide receiver. Second-year wide receiver. And what has he done compared to these other guys?
What do you mean? What has he done? I mean, he's done everything possible.
What has he done compared to those 10 receivers?
It wasn't mean Buffalo in the opener if it wasn't for him.
No. Who compared to the 10 receivers? How does he break that top 10?
I mean,
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I agree with the top 3. I think the other seven should be jumbled around to where they are. But I'm not a big fan of Brandon Ayuk. I don't think that he makes the top 10. I feel like the reason why he's on that list is because of Deebo Samuel, because he actually gets a little bit more play, and the fact that they have McCaffrey as well. So I don't think that he makes that top 10 list. There are better receivers in that regard, but I mean, I don't. It's not a ridiculous list. I think that the top 3 are right there. Once you get to CeeDee Lamb before A.J. Brown, I know A.J. Brown didn't catch the ball last week, but that they weren't really targeting him. You could almost say that Devonta Smith should be in that top 10 list. But now you got 2 Eagles on that list, and that doesn't make any sense either. So
if you're gonna go based off last year, I'm saying this is not just for this year. This is for the last couple of years.
Byron, Aikman said Garrett Wilson was the best young receiver he's ever seen.
Well, I never.
And that's why he only gets paid to call games, and he's not a coach.
Byron,
he gets paid more to call games.
Before you go, I want your quick analysis on the game last night. We know what happened. They played a legitimate Super Bowl contender again. Eagles in a tough 2 games. First half was good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Giants are really becoming better focused. I do like their hardness and how they approach this game. But right now, ain't too many teams gonna beat the 49ers. But they did show some outstanding play the first half. Second half, they just kind of fell asleep. And plus, they got 10 days off before their next game, which gonna help them. But I'm still excited about the Giants. I just think it's time for them to make some adjustments, and I think their defensive backs and the linebacker play got to get better for sure. And they just don't challenge the receivers enough, and so that's what they're lacking.
Byron, before Jack gets to you about Thibodeau, because I see a smile come over his face.
Yeah,
Byron,
I was going to say the same thing too, but.
Byron, the thing most impressed me about the Giants defense was their linebacker McFadden, who was all over the place, had a really good game. I really believe that the Giants right now are stuck without Saquon, without Thomas, 4 days of rest. They ran out of gas in the second half. That's what I think. And you're playing. I mean, you play 2 legitimate Super Bowl teams, the Eagles and the 49ers. Still a tough part of the schedule. They got 11 days off. They'll be better prepared for next game, and I believe that too. So
yeah.
Well, I got a question for you, Byron, just before you head out. I feel like this next game is going to define the coach's career here for the Giants. I mean, it sounds really funny, but I feel like that this is a monster game for him. I felt that he was losing his poise in that game, and I feel like they were fighting the refs a little bit.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was talking to somebody in the Eagles organization yesterday, and even that person said that the NFL kind of wants Shanahan in the Super Bowl. That there may be, he's not saying that the refs are going to call games or anything like that. He didn't go anywhere near that, but he's saying that that's what they would prefer, and that maybe that some of the calls that were happening yesterday were a little tacky. And that one Thibodeau play, he shouldn't have touched him like that. He should have pushed him like that, but neither here nor there. That all it did was just make the field goal shorter. But realistically, that I feel that he was losing his poise on the sideline, and that it's going to be important for him to come, bring it back in, bring his team together here, and make sure they come out firing on all cylinders for this next week, or else they could have a real problem throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that he was really upset about that one call going into the goal line. And I think at that point, the referees, they was not calling a fair game a couple of plays, but that's part of it, and that's why referees need to start getting evaluated, and that's why they're supposed to be getting evaluated, because the best referees gonna referee the Super Bowl. That's their rewards to to get to the Super Bowl like the NFL teams. But yeah, unfortunately, I think he wanted to prove a point, and that was a real bad call. And so, and I can see that you can't get all upset on one call anyway. But that shows you that he felt like they weren't getting a fair chance during that particular time of the game. And I just think that he will make the adjustments, and I do believe that I think they're gonna make some changes on certain parts, but yeah, they need, of course they got some missing pieces right now, but unfortunately he let the referees have it. I mean, you don't hardly see that in the NFL.
He almost got 15 yards on that. Yeah. They almost got an extra penalty on that. I was watching it, but it lingered.
Yeah.
It lingered, and that's what kind of it's fine to get upset and show the passion on the play, but it lingered beyond that, and that's what kind of made me a little nervous for that coach. Was like, is he really going to be able to hold it together here, or is he feeling the pressure of what this team is now in comparison to last year? He was winning these games, close games, and those close calls he was making.
He's in no danger getting fired because Joe Shine, the GM, came from Buffalo with Brian DeBall. That's his guy.
I'm not talking about getting fired. There's not getting fired. This is a matter of keeping the team together.
They have no leaders. The problem is, where's the leadership on the Giant team? Most teams have multiple leaders you could point to. Like even a team like the Eagles, you could point to a guy like a Fletcher Cox is a leader, and they have a few other leaders on that team. I can't identify the leaders on the Giants. Daniel Jones hasn't really established himself as a leader. You would think on the defensive end there would be some leaders, but I don't see anyone. I don't see a Leonard Williams stepping up as any type of leader, even though he's been there a while. And you need the leaders on the field, and the Giants seem to be lacking.
Well, I mean, the only one I could say on defense is maybe McKinney. On offense is Barkley.
But he's not a leader. McKinney had a great game yesterday. He's not a leader.
He is, Jack. I follow the Giants on everything, so he is considered a leader on defense there. And Saquon Barkley was out. One more thought, Byron. I know I keep telling you we're gonna let you go. Jalen Hyatt, Paris Campbell. What's going on there? Why aren't you putting out your best deep threat that helped turn the game around last game? Why is he not on the field? And they got Paris Campbell out.
I don't know. Maybe he got a leg injury or something, because I don't understand that either. This guy is fast. He can stretch the defense, and you got to open up the offense. That help open up the offense. And one of the things that we used to do back in the day, regardless of the deal, we used to run guys deep and just to make the defense honest. And you don't hardly see that this day and time. You have to do that. You have to open it up and create more, activities on your offense, more opportunities.
All right.
Well, and
All
plus they didn't have the time.
No.
They were not giving him the time, so there was no need for him to go long because he would have been sacked.
Yeah.
All right.
And you got to put somebody on Boza. They let him go one time free. I mean,
I saw that.
blocking him.
I saw that. That was almost a safety. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, Byron. Thank you for coming in as you always do. We'll see you next Friday. And as Rick Sherlock said, he loves your show, Jim. J&B Talking Shop every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Join the two former NFL players, Jim Jeffco and Byron Williams. Have a great day, Byron.
Take care, Byron.
All right, so there you go. Byron Williams, always had fun having him on. If you haven't seen J&B Talking Shop, it is a fun show. They go at it all the time, make fun of each other and their teams, and then they get down some analysis, former player analysis. So, I mean, if you like that kind of stuff, go on over there and tune in. Pags, a little bit of Philly news here. Phillies are still leading in the wild card race. Had a big game last night again. Your bats, you just got unbelievable bats there.
Well, it's I feel that they have been they like to play in the cold, and it's getting colder here. So that's kind of what I think is going to be the biggest deal moving forward. That they got to get the bats because they're going to need to score runs because pitching is not going to do it for them.
I wanted to ask you a question now with the pitching. When the Phillies got Craig Kimbrell, the idea was for him to be the closer, correct? Is
Correct.
Alvarado now the closer, and is Kimbrell the setup man? Come playoff time, who is going to be the closer? Is it a 50-50 deal, which is rare? Usually a team identifies one guy as being the closer. Who's supposed to be the closer for the postseason?
I think it's becoming evident that it's Alvarado. Kimbrell's having a hard time stopping runs from crossing the plate.
He hasn't been bad, Kimbrell, we have to point out, but he hasn't.
He's not been as good as he's been in previous years.
Yeah,
he's definitely let some runs across the plate, and that's a big deal. And I feel that Alvarado, with the fact that he's throwing 100 miles an hour, plus, I mean, he had a great pitching sequence against who's the third baseman for the Mets?
Batty.
No, 46 home runs. Who's the one 46 home runs?
46 homers on the Mets. You're talking about Alonso, the first.
That's it. Yeah, first baseman, not third. I'm sorry. I had a great pitching sequence against him yesterday to close out the game, and I think that's what they're looking for more importantly than anything else.
Okay, and your thoughts on Tampa Bay 2-0 against the Eagles? Tampa Bay against the Eagles, who are also 2-0. Tampa Bay, do they have a shot against the Eagles?
Yeah, they have a shot.
Okay.
It's the Eagles, for some reason or another, do not play really well in Tampa Bay. Every time I have gone there have been number of, like I watched a 63-yard field goal to lose a game in Tampa Bay. It seems like every time I've gone down there that we've lost. So I'd like to see them really pull it together. The offense hasn't really clicked on all cylinders yet. I'm hoping that starts to occur. They actually have a pretty good defense, but their defense is predicated on the defensive line, and I feel like that goes into our strength against the offensive line. So I'm interested to see what their game plan is, because you're not going to be able to run the ball like we did last week against the Vikings the same way. So, in fact, I'm not going to be able to even stick around much longer because I am headed to the airport, because I'm heading down to Tampa here in a few minutes.
All right, Pax, we'll let you go then. Enjoy your trip, and we'll see if the Eagles can do that. I think the Eagles have no problem with Tampa Bay. We'll see it, kid. We'll see it.
Well, Tampa's 2-0. You know what I mean? So it's not like that they're just a pushover right now. I mean, I thought that there might have been a surprise. Who would have thought? I mean, you have the NFC East, which is 7-1, but the NFC South is 6-2. That there's three teams in that division that are 2-0. And out of all three of those teams, the one team that really has stood out more than the other ones has been Tampa Bay.
You got to look at the teams they're playing too, Bags. I mean, Vikings were as a good win. Their defense in Minnesota is no good. I mean, we'll see. By the end of the season, the Saints will be in first place, and that will be it. Nobody else is coming out of Nobody else is coming out of it. That's the way I think it.
We'll see. We will definitely see. Good morning,
Right,
Keith.
Pat.
How are you?
Good chat with you, Pags. Have a good day.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't stay longer, but you'll see me tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Keith Engel, we bring him in and all our other guests leave. So there's nothing against Keith.
That's me. Nobody cleans a room out like I do. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Keith would love to clean up the Yankee roster, and he kind of has. So, Keith.
Well, we'll definitely get to the Yankees. Little college football preview, Keith. Any upsets or what do you think the best games will be?
There's
going to be some really good games. Yeah, there is. But we'll stick in the top 10 and any other games you see afterwards that you think we should take a look at. Yep. We got the Rutgers playing number 2 Michigan. Is this the last game that Harbaugh is?
I believe Coach Harbaugh is back on the sideline this weekend. Okay. I believe.
All right, so there you go. They're playing against the Rutgers. I would imagine they're not going to have too many problems with the Rutgers, Keith.
Rutgers is 3-0. Everybody's a little excited, in East Rutherford. But the heart of your Big Ten schedule starts, so it's going to get a little rough for Greg Schiano. Michigan should have no problem here.
I'm interested to see if Clemson can upset number 4 Florida State, Keith. Is that a possibility?
Unless Corey Klubnik really becomes a top-notch quarterback overnight, I don't think so. Florida State last week had a rough go at Boston College, but I think it was a classic look-ahead game. They're looking ahead to this Clemson game. Florida State pretty much holds, as does another team in that conference, by the way, kind of controls their own destiny. They run the table here in the ACC. They're going to make it to the playoff, and Clemson has always been the major stumbling block. They may not be the major stumbling block this year. It might be Duke. And
right.
I think Florida State will go into Clemson. Tough place to play, but I think they'll win this game.
You got, of course, the probably going to be the most watched game coming up, even though it may not be the best. You got Colorado going into Oregon, Keith, and they talk about Colorado's offense. Oregon's offense is pretty powerful itself.
Oregon's got a really good offense. They also have a much better defense than anything that Colorado's seen so far, in my mind. I do think Colorado will get a few points up, but I think Oregon's going to score at will. Colorado's defense is not very good. Their best defensive player, Travis Hunter, is out after that vicious hit he took last week that lacerated his liver. So he was playing both ways too.
Yeah. Well, Keith, they're 21-point underdogs like they were the first game. I imagine, Colorado's going to come in there all humped up, piped up. I think there's going to be a lot of action early. Maybe Oregon wins, wears them out in the second half.
Colorado, Deion will have that team ready to play. Yes, it's us against the world all the time. 21-point, but this 21-point deficit or spread is a little different than the first week. TCU is not Oregon,
right?
And I expect them to cover the 21 here. But
you got
it might be a scoring affair.
I agree. You got Texas and Baylor. I think this is going to be a very close game. It's a rivalry. Baylor has a great defense. I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak up there and beat them, Keith.
Baylor hasn't played very well the first few weeks. They got beat by Texas State in week 1. Their coach is under a little fire there, but at home, I think Texas got a little wake-up call last week. In fact, I think I mentioned it here that game would be closer than we think. They ended up winning by 21, but they were tied going into the fourth quarter in that game against Wyoming at home. So I think that wake-up call will get them back on track, and I do think they'll handle Baylor. It probably will be a harder-fought game than many people might think, though.
Okay. Colorado at Washington. Washington, number 8. I know how long it's been since Washington has been in the top 10, but they should be able to beat California, Keith.
This should not be a match. This should be another blowout for Washington. To me, has played as good as anybody in the country. Now, they haven't played great teams yet. We know that, although they did go to Michigan State and win on the road big last week, which, as bad as Michigan State is the disarray that program's in right now, it's still a good win on the road. They have not – I don't think they've lost it or won a game by less than like 30-some points. So I think they'll do the same again at home against Cal. Okay.
Iowa against Penn State, number 7. Penn State still playing really good ball, Keith.
Penn State, yeah, I'm not high on James Franklin as a coach because he can't beat Michigan and Ohio State, but he usually beats a lot of the other Big Ten teams. If this game were in Iowa, I'd give Iowa a fighting chance because their defense is really good. Problem is they can't score points.
Right.
In fact, their offensive coordinator, who's the head coach's son, has in his contract, if they don't average 25 points a game this year, he'll get fired.
Wow.
And they've exceeded that once this year, and that was last week against a bad football team. I think Penn State wins this one fairly handily.
Probably to me the best game, maybe not the most watched because I think everybody be tuned to Colorado, is Ohio State at Notre Dame, Keith. Ohio State has had their number. They're starting to come on. Ohio State's starting to score like they used to. Notre Dame's got a very good defense and a very good offense, and in Notre Dame, and I don't care what the Ohio State coach says, we got to block out the noise. You're not going to be able to block out the noise to be able to play like you're playing in a quiet field. They're going to hear the Notre Dame fans. What do you think, Keith?
I agree. In fact, Notre Dame's has done what they can to limit the number of Ohio State fans there because they had a problem a few years back when Georgia came here and it was like a red out. I mean, Georgia fans got so many tickets and they let them all sit together. So Notre Dame's put some things into play that even with the allocation of tickets they give to Ohio State, which I think is 5,000, they're spread out all over the stadium. So they can't have a big red section, if you will. I think Notre Dame, Sam Hartman has added a dimension to this team that they didn't have before. And that's really an outstanding quarterback. They've had some decent quarterback play, not recently, but Ian Book, going back to those days, they haven't had a really good quarterback in a long, long time there. He is a really good quarterback. He's got some better weapons around him than they've had recently as far as skill position players. Their defense is good. I like Notre Dame to win this game. Now, Ohio State's playing better. Their big problem was quarterback, and McCord has played better every single season or every single week this season. And they're going to be good. This will be a tight game, I think. Ohio State's favored on the road. I don't get that at all, to be honest with you. It should be pick 'em at worst.
Well, I think that's the pass, Keith. They think that Ohio State has them figured out or something. New coaches, I don't know.
Recent history, Notre Dame doesn't win these games, but Brian Kelly's not here anymore. I think Marcus Freeman is better built for this. So I think this team has really responded to Marcus Freeman after a really slow start last year. They played really good football since, and I like this team a lot Sunday.
All right.
Or Saturday, excuse me.
UAB versus number 1 Georgia. I don't see much of a game here. This is another gimme game for Georgia.
Listen, a lot of people down on Georgia. I'm down on the SEC in general. I picked Georgia to win and be the first team second team to three-peat. Minnesota during World War II got interrupted, so people don't like to count it, but it'll be the second team at three-peats. People look at that game last week, saw them down 14-3, and you know what? Georgia dominated that game in the second half. I didn't feel it watching the second half. South Carolina had any chance. Georgia's still good, not as good as they've been the last 2 years, but they don't have to be. Not in this game. UAB, they hired Trent Dilfer as kind of a, just a flashy hire, and they're off to a bad start. They're not a bad football team at their level, but not against Georgia.
Right. USC at Arizona State. USC currently number 5 in the top 10 ratings. I don't see Arizona State being able to stay with them.
No, USC may score all the way into the NFL when the NFL games start on Sunday. This is going to be a real bad mismatch, I think.
A real question off the cuff is, I know he's a legend. I know, he's one of the greatest coaches ever in college. Is Nick Saban starting to feel the heat a little bit here, Keith? I mean, there's been wait a minute. There's been coaches that have been mainstays at some colleges, and they don't like to lose in Alabama. They're supposed to be out there. They're like the Yankees. They're supposed to win the Jets championship game. That's where they're supposed to be every year. Now they're at number 15. I think they're going to sink lower this year. I don't think they got a team this year that could even be maybe not even make the top 20. If that happens.
Listen,
Mac is hinting maybe Saban's job might be in danger if they don't win this year, at least by next year. That's what Mac is hinting.
I know that, and it was brought up. Paul Feinbaum, I think, brought it up on his show this week that maybe he's feeling some heat. I don't look at feeling heat and getting fired is a different thing. Nick Saban is the greatest football coach, college football coach of all time.
Yeah.
He passed Bear Bryant about 2 years ago. I'm telling you.
You said the greatest coach, a college coach of all time. You didn't say the best Alabama coach of all time.
He is. He's better than Bear Bryant. He is. The numbers
Well, he's
show
better than Bear Bryant, but yeah,
he is the best college football coach of all time.
Newt Rockne is better than him. I'm sorry, Keith.
He doesn't have nearly as many wins or national championships. Other than that, yes, I'll give you that.
But he had the best speeches, Keith. So come on.
I will give you that he has better speeches. Yes.
All right. And of course, it was a different time back then. I mean, Navy was winning championships.
That helps him too. You know, he died in a timely death. Helps your legacy.
Yeah.
So
yes, and of course, some people may say Deion Sanders is a better coach than him right now, Keith.
Yeah, if you look at what Saban's done here since he got and where they were, you can't just look at where they've been since 2007 when he got there. They were basically, except for a couple of years under Gene Stallings, they were a wasteland for the 20-some plus years after Bear Bryant retired. Yes. They went through coaches like I don't know, like some NFL teams go through coaches. Yes. He's stabilized that program. He's made it the greatest program, returned it to the greatest program in football history, winning wise, championship wise, and he'll feel heat. He's 71 years old. He may put the heat on himself. Hey, haven't recruited well at quarterback since Bryce Young. That's only last year, by the way. So,
how much does it mean to a university, Keith, to turn out NFL players that get drafted? Let's say their teams are so, but they get a lot of guys drafted by the NFL. Is that a source of great pride for the university?
It helps their recruiting, is what it does. I mean,
beyond that, I mean, as far as stature goes.
Nah, I don't think so. I think it's winning college football games and winning national championships. There's more important than that. So I think, because look at the Miami Hurricanes are a great example. They turned out pro players forever, and people think, and I'm a Hurricane fan, by the way, people think that they're historically great football program. They had a 20-year run from 1982 to 2002 where they were great. That's it, really. They've had, spattering of success since, but, and they turned out more NFL players than anybody at that point in time. It's more important to recruiting than it is to anything else. I argue all the time with guys, when they say, there's no Ohio State quarterbacks that have ever been any good in the NFL, and that's a black mark on the coaches at Ohio State. That's not their job. Their job is to win college football games. That's it.
I agree. So let's do a little New York Yankee news. Brian Cashman came out with his evaluation of the season, and he said the season is a disaster. So, I mean, that's his evaluation of.
Pretty simple. End of press conference, I hope.
Yes, that was pretty much it. Follow-up questions were not needed, Keith. So I don't know if he could explain the answer to him. Anyway, Stanton says something's got to change. He's worried about getting injured, running the bases. He's 2 for 39 with 17 strikeouts in the past 11 games. I don't, Keith, I don't know. I don't know what you do with Stanton. He's got a big contract. I know they say pay half of it. Still out of money. What team is going to take a player that doesn't run the bases because he's worried about getting hurt and strikes out a lot? I don't know.
Somebody will take him if you pay enough money. And Jack and I have this conversation a lot, obviously, that, you can only pay so much. They could pay it if they wanted to. They don't want to. So they're stuck with him. So I don't even know how many years he's got left.
Keep him and straighten him out. You can straighten Stanton out. Look at all the guys the Yankees got rid of. They're thriving now. Better coaching, better atmosphere. I mean, be patient with Stanton. He can still hit, even though he's had an awful year. He's had an atrocious year. Look, even Miguel Andujar's hitting 275 for Pittsburgh. He knocked in 3 runs yesterday. Josh Donaldson's having a little revival. Aaron Hicks is hitting close to 300 for Baltimore. Sonny Gray is pitching on a close to Cy Young level for Minnesota. I mean,
many times
players, they can still play.
How many times have we got to have the same conversation? And when I tell you, yes, they're playing great baseball somewhere else. They didn't play great baseball here. They were they were, and by the way, guys like Aaron Hicks were given every chance, more than they should have been given to.
No, they weren't, Keith, because people like yourself got down on them. You got down on them too quick.
One thing me and Jack talked about, I think this is the biggest problem with the Yankees, is the culture there. They don't have fun. They're too serious. I mean, they've been that way since Jeter. But, you know, when you're winning a World Series like that, that's fine. Right now, they're not in that position. It doesn't look like they're happy. A lot of players are happy playing there anymore. It looks like there's way too much pressure from the fans to play well. The old World Series or nothing thing is, I think, is ridiculous now. Just have a good team. When the young kids came up, at first it looked like they were having fun, but something about playing in New York and Yankee Stadium brings them back down to earth. And here's Volpe saying, I know I've got to play better. I put a lot of this on myself. Relax. Go out and have some fun. Play some baseball. Enjoy the game.
I agree. I mean, I think if they focus on the kid, listen, I'm willing to eat a couple of seasons here and develop some of these kids around Aaron Judge with some strategic free agent signings, not overpaying pitchers and guys who are one-dimensional like Stanton, and get some of that excitement back. I agree. And it goes to my point. It's a tough place to play. That's just a fact. You know, pretty much on any team in New York, it's tougher to play than somewhere else because it's unlike any other city in the country. There's others that are hard to play in, but New York is way above all of them in my mind.
I mean, I'll go back to Jack's point with Hicks. Hicks was booed every time he went in the field, every time he got up to bat. Who would be able to perform under that kind? I mean, not just you're playing in New York, and it has something to do with play. Keith,
right on, Matt.
All I'm saying is he goes to Baltimore.
Before Keith answers, let me just add this to what you said, Matt. How do you think Aaron Hicks feels when he turns to shows like this and listens to Keith Engel saying when he was at the Yankees, get rid of him. We don't need him. Eat the salary. Just get him out of here.
Tell him.
I mean, he can't have fun when he's hearing guys, analysts like Keith Engel talking like that.
When he comments on my comments, Mac, you get him in the show and I'll tell him to his face. You had every chance to make it here and you didn't.
He's playing for an elite team now in the Orioles and performing.
I'm happy for him. I am. He couldn't do it here. It's, you know, and again, Mac, you're right, but how do you change? You're not changing the fans. You can't say, don't come
and you know, Keith, you're bringing up a great point. If you're going to keep Boone there and you're going to keep the general manager with that culture, you deserve to lose. You deserve to get what you get. And so that's part of the culture. So
I think Boone's gone. I don't think Cashman is.
I can agree with you and Jack in the same breath here, saying the culture's got to change. But how do you change the culture? You do that by getting a young coach in here that enjoys teaching baseball, that enjoys managing a team, and you have a new culture.
You hit something on the head. Enjoys teaching baseball, not launch angles and exit velocities and all this nonsense they're teaching in the minor leagues now. I want somebody to teach guys and help them improve their baseball instincts, right? And understand situations. And yes, you'll have fun playing that type of baseball and hold guys accountable. My biggest problem with Aaron Boone is he never holds anybody accountable, ever.
I agree.
He makes excuses right and left for Stanton not running the bases and guys making bad mental mistakes. Laboratories, running the bases until he gets tagged out. That's his.
He thinks it's pickle.
Well, Gleyber's had a good year, actually. He's won one of the
Yeah, he does, but his running, I mean, he thinks he's playing pickle out there. You remember the old pickle game where you ran back and forth, you got tagged.
Just run until you get tagged. That's the game for him.
That's kind of crazy. But, I love his aggressiveness. So
But just playing the young players, I mean, they had Florial in center field. He looked shaky. The other day, Austin Wells, their young catcher who they drafted highly, I mean, there were number passed balls, and he wasn't bailing the pitcher out. The ball would be bounced in the dirt, but a good catcher bails the pitcher out most of the time, and he was like clueless. The ball was bounding off his glove.
There's nobody in the Yankee organization who thinks that Wells is a good catcher right now. They think they can develop him, which is what they're working with him now here on the major league level. and trying to give him a taste of the show at the same time, they aren't sure that will be his position at the end of the day, because he is very shaky behind the plate, and I don't know that he's going to get good enough to play Major League Baseball behind him.
Let me say this, Matt.
Go ahead.
You mentioned with the new manager to bring in, I think there's a lot at stake these next couple of weeks for Aaron Boone. I really do. If the Yankees play poorly and they end the season with a losing record, he just might be gone. If they finish, let's say, even 82-80, they're one game over 500 right now. I feel he definitely stays because Brian Cashman's definitely staying, and he's Hal Steinbrenner's guy.
Yeah, I'll say this for Boone. I already think Boone's gone now. I will say this for Aaron Boone in his defense, which I don't know that I've ever done this. The Yankees have played hard down the stretch. They've tried to play spoilers. They haven't quit. I could say the same thing about the Mets in a lot of regards. They haven't quit. They've kept playing hard, not given up, and gotten ready to play golf in the offseason. They've continued to play hard, and I do think this 30-year streak of finishing over 500 is important to this organization because they're still chasing. I think the Canadians at one point won like 39 years in a row. They had a winning record, and I think that's important.
I have a question to ask Keith. This is going to be the Yankees' biggest dilemma with a free agent signing with Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole at the end of next year can opt out of his contract. He signed a 9-year deal originally, $36 million a year. He's completing his third year. He's been worth the money these 3 years. They've had to be pretty happy with him all in all. If he performs at the same level next year that he's performed in these 3, he'll have 5 years left at $36 million a year. And chances are he is going to opt out. Because worst case scenario, even if he opts out, the Yankees will say, welcome back for the same $36 million for 5 years. He's going to want more than 5 years. And at the end of he'll be 31 years old at the end of next season. Do the Yankees tack on at least a couple of years more at the same money, maybe more money, maybe a little more money? It's a dilemma. Do they take him into his late 30s the way other teams have did with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander?
With mixed results, by the way.
Mixed results, exactly.
This is one of the reasons you don't give guys 9 and 10-year contracts with opt-outs. You get one or the other. I don't like this because you put yourself in this dilemma that they shouldn't be in. They should have signed him. I mean, they probably wouldn't have got him if they didn't give the opt-out. I get that. But if everybody was holding court on this and can't think of the phrase I'm trying to come up with, but stood fast and did not give these opt-outs. Here, you can have the 3-year contract if you want it, or you can have the 9-year contract, but no opt-outs. You don't have these types of dilemmas. You're right. The Yankees have a dilemma there, and a lot of it is going to come down to what direction they want to take.
See, the only problem, and I agree with you, Keith, but the only problem with that is the Yankees don't do that. Some other team will.
Well,
let's talk about
right.
Dominguez. Yeah. Dominguez is going under Tommy John surgery, the center fielder who got hurt. So hopefully he's back by next year. He does look promising. Let's talk about the Jets and the Patriots. Pags and Jack they go at it all the time. This is probably the best chance the Patriots have of getting a win so far. For some reason, the Patriots beat the Jets. I think I forget how many years it's been in a row.
14 games in a row.
The point is, this is not the same Jets. They got a good defense, new coach. Problem is Zach Wilson. If he plays bad and Mac Jones plays good enough to win, and I think this is going to happen. I think the Patriots get their first win. So, Bill O'Brien, if they beat the Jets and that defense, are we going to start saying that Bill O'Brien's being the offensive coordinator is really what's making this Patriot offense play better and may make the playoffs as a wild card, Keith?
Yes, I said that before the season, so I'm not going to change my tune now. Absolutely, I think more people will see it. They played well enough. Mac Jones has played well enough to win 2 games. Mac Jones has played really good football. The team has made some bonehead mistakes, got themselves in holes. They can't continue to do that if they want to win. They still need to make some they have some problems on the offensive line. But, this is a big week, I think, for them because, they could very easily be 2-4 after 6. And I still don't think they're out of the playoffs because they're going to get better as this season goes on. This offense has played well in spurts. The defense has been good. Bad penalties have got to go away. Zach, this is a game. They're favored. I'm not sure how they're favored in this game, to be honest with you. Despite the fact that Zach Wilson's playing quarterback, I think this is a big game for both these teams, and it may show the direction either one of them go, depending on who wins this game. 0-3 for the Patriots would not be good, even because I don't know if they get to 2-4 if they lose this game.
Keith,
1-2 is going to be bad too. Zach
the
Wilson,
Giant defense, the Jet defense played poorly against Dallas. I got to believe their pride was wounded in that game. They're going to come back with a vengeance in this game.
Yeah.
And if New England is able to have a lot of offensive success against the Jets, maybe that's a sign we've overrated the Jet defense by a little bit. But I do know this. I can't imagine the Jet coaches getting so creative where they can have a lot of offensive success against Bill Belichick in this situation, because Bill Belichick would feast on a Zach Wilson in a game like this. So the Jets are going to have – I look for a low-scoring game. Whoever wins, where special teams might play a huge role on it, a tip ball here or there, creating a turnover. I think it's going to be a nip-and-tuck type game because I think Bill Belichick – it might be an absolute nightmare for Zach Wilson in this spot.
it's possible. And again, Zach Wilson has not stepped up at all. I mean, if he were just play within himself, he doesn't have to be a great quarterback. He just needs to manage the game. There's so much talent around him, but he can't seem to slow the game down. Their offensive line has been a problem, like the Patriots as well, and not giving him much of a chance to do that. Their defense is good. I would expect a low-scoring game here as well. I think the last time they played last year, it was like 6-3 or some really low-scoring game. So the defenses are good. Just limit the mistakes, and I think that's where you'll see the winner.
I got a little advice for Zach Wilson. If it ain't there in that read, run with the ball. He's a great athlete. And for him not running the ball, I think he's got to run the ball more than he has.
Design running plays for Zach Wilson, which is out of the norm against the Patriots. That might throw Belichick off a bit if Zach Wilson actually runs a lot. You're taking a chance of getting hurt. He's got to go down at the right time. But I think that would be a way to surprise New England.
And New England, Mac Jones, please do not run. You don't have to run.
We do not watch Mac Jones run the football.
Just throw the ball.
Or Cole Strange, for that matter, either. By the way,
that's true too, Pete. All right, Keith, that's about it for what we have with you with the Yankees and the college and the Patriots Jets. Should be I think it's going to be a great game. Rivalry, the whole 9 yards going on there. The past I think it's going to be a great game. Keith, the Roku thing next week. Okay, we'll do that next week.
Start it up next week. Okay, all right, I'll get it.
I'll get it
up and then start next week. That's fine.
Yeah, sounds great. All right, Keith, have a great one. Keith Engel from TGI Sports Talk. Everyone, follow him on Facebook, YouTube, and soon we'll be coming to the Roku channel. And here we go again. We got him back. We got Keith. Robert went on last night. Keith's coming back, and we're going to build that Roku TV back up to where it was before, but with a lot better management, Keith. So
excellent.
All right, buddy. You have a good one.
Great to have it. Bye, Eggs.
Take care, Keith.
Oh, Keith Engel with his insights, very insightful in everything he talks about. Jack and him will never agree on the Yankees, which is fine. It makes for a good show. So that's that. So let's get into some boxing, Jack, in the last segment here of our show. Big fight coming up tomorrow. Big disagreement between you and Frank Lotieris on Glove Fist. If you guys didn't see it, last night, they're on Thursday night from 8 to 9. They moved over to that day, and they're giving that a try. So tune in every Thursday night from 7 to 8 to watch Glove Fist. Big disagreement on this fight coming up, Jack. What's going on there with Zhang?
Yeah, we do. Joe Joyce is having his rematch with the big Chinese heavyweight Zhang, who stopped him in 6 rounds the last time they fought. And Zhang really punished Joyce in that fight. So many straight punches down the slot were landing cleanly. Joe Joyce has never been the best defensive fighter. And before that fight, Joe Joyce is really hot property in the heavyweight division. I mean, he was on the short list of the top heavyweights in the world. And there were a number of people who thought he would present a very serious challenge to Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. So he loses to Zhang. But so now they're fighting again. Normally when a fighter is beaten that badly, he doesn't get redemption in a return match because his opponent showed a certain superiority. There's a difference between getting hit one punch and getting knocked out, or losing your equilibrium and then the opponent follows up and you're never the same. It was a beatdown. And that's what Joe Joyce suffered. But with that said, I think he actually may have won the first fight if his right eye didn't shut completely, because he took everything that Zhang threw. Zhang damaged him pretty badly, but Zhang was then getting tired. He's a giant, Zhang, a big giant, and he has a hard time going the distance at a fast pace. So Joyce would have kept coming at him, and maybe Joyce would have gotten him by the later rounds. I mean, we're never going to know that for sure. I got to assume tomorrow that Joyce's eye isn't going to shut the same way. He already showed he could take Zhang's punches as far as being able to absorb them and remain on his feet and move forward. So I think he's going to have better results. Zhang is going to connect with his good share punches again. I don't think they're going to damage Joyce quite as much. Joyce will be coming at Zhang. And eventually, I think Zhang gets tired by the later rounds and Joyce stops him. I mean, that's the way I see it going.
Okay. All right. Spence and Crawford, again, are going to be fighting in December, Jack. At 147, I'm surprised it didn't go up to the higher weight of 154, Jack.
Yeah, it hasn't officially been decided for December yet. That's what they're talking about.
Right.
We'll see whether that becomes a reality or not. And they had a contractual agreement before the first fight. It was a two-fight series. They each had a rematch clause. Each they could have invoked. And part of the rematch clause was this. The winner of the first fight gets to decide whether the second fight is fought at 147 or 154 pounds, which is the junior middleweight limit. Crawford, after beating Spence, said he would be willing to fight at junior middleweight. And then Crawford thought it over. He said, look, I beat him. He wants to fight at junior middleweight. He has trouble making the weight. I have some trouble making the weight, but I know Spence has trouble making the weight. And Crawford then said, I'll fight at 154, but we got to redo the terms of the contract, meaning the money situation.
Right.
So he basically wanted Spence to take a reduced percentage to have the rematch fought at 154. Spence is probably thinking, no, I want to get my money.
Sure.
And maybe this might show a slight lack of confidence on Spence's part. You know I put the burden on Crawford during the show Glove Fist. Spence is willing to drain himself again to get down to 147 when he really needs the fight to be fought at 154 to be stronger, because Spence might be thinking, well, this is my cash out fight. The worst that'll happen, I lose to Crawford. I'm going to get what? I'm going to get my 20 million or thereabouts. And then I could retire. I'm a wealthy guy as it is, and this makes me even a lot wealthier. So you have to kind of wonder, is this a bit of like a parachute for, Spence to get out of the sport? Because if he was really confident he would beat Crawford and pride mattered more than money, he would say, no, I need this at 154. He could have the extra money. I'll beat him at 154. I'll make the money up later. It kind of reminds me of the Lennox Lewis Riddick Bowe situation, not as far as weight goes. When they fought back in the day, they actually had a claim to the title. Bowe never wanted any part of Lennox Lewis, at least his manager, Rock Newman, didn't. They did everything to avoid Lennox Lewis. So they threw out an offer to Lennox Lewis that was pretty low.
Right.
Lennox Lewis said, I accept your offer. You know, I just want to fight Bo, knock him out, let him get more money. This is about legacy to me. I know I can beat this guy. I just want him in the ring. And Bo still wouldn't take the fight, even though Lewis was willing to take short money.
Yeah, there you go. I wouldn't want to fight Lennox Lewis either at one time, Jack. That's a one bad fight.
But Bo was really good at the time.
Bo
and they
was
were the
good.
two leading
Bo
heavyweights.
was good.
It's
but he
kind of
was
like
Bo.
with Tyson Fury,
He was-
Alexander Usyk.
He
Fury
no
was blabbing, I'll fight Usyk. It's a 70-30 split in my
Right.
favor. You have 24 hours to accept it. After that, every day it goes down 1%.
Right.
Usyk immediately got on. He said, offer accepted.
That was it.
Okay?
It was
And Fury didn't go through with the fight because Fury, I can't believe that Fury was scared of Usyk, but I feel Fury maybe wasn't in a place mentally where he was focused on
in my
boxing against a
opinion,
real
like I say,
fighter.
I'm no expert like you and Frank, but I do follow. I do love the sport. I think Usyk technically was something Fury never fought. He's fought guys, big sluggers that threw big, and he could move in and out and punch.
Yeah.
Usyk wasn't going to let him do that. So I think Fury might have tagged him a couple of times, but I think Usyk would have at least won that on points. Maybe in the later rounds, maybe knocks him out. Jack, he has power.
We don't know. Fury would have been favored, Frank. Fury's a very talented big guy who could box really, really well. I don't know what was going on through Fury's head. He's fighting this mixed martial artist in a boxing match. Listen to this. It's not even mixed martial arts where you can use his skill. So basically, a mixed martial artist is fighting on the boxing rules. That's what happened with Jake Paul. Jake Paul was beating a bunch of mixed martial artists, big names.
But they got a box.
Jake Paul.
But they got a box.
But all they were allowed to do was box. Now they had some boxing skills, but it wasn't really their element.
It's Jack. Everybody talks about the UFC compared to boxing, MMA. There's no comparison. I mean, to box, you can't use any part of your body but your hands, and defense somewhat. It's a total skill. Now, I'm not taking nothing away from MMA because it's very exciting. But when you can use every part of your body and you can take them down and kick, and it's a totally different sport, a little less skill, I would say, than boxing. Very exciting, but not the skill that boxing carries. And that's why boxing is still, in my opinion anyway, when you have a major fight bigger than the UFC. The UFC is just not, is still not on boxing level as far as the big fights go. In general, yes, but not when it comes to the big fights. So, folks,
not at all. Yeah, agree.
All right. So, I mean, we got some other things said, but a lot of gossip and stuff. I know we got another fight coming up with Hitchens. I think is that a flyweight?
Yeah, Jose Cepeda. Yeah, junior welterweight fight. Conor Benn after his issues with PEDs, which hasn't gotten resolved. Okay, who in reality, a lot of people feel Conor Benn should be on suspension, shouldn't be allowed back in the ring, is returning on that show in Orlando. So you kind of feel a little dirty by that in a way.
Right. All right, we got dirty boxing out there. All right, Jack. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in for all the comments, the views. Thanks to Byron Keith and the Philly Sports Guy. We'll be back with the debate show tomorrow. I got some really interesting. I don't know if Jack's checked his email or not, but I got some very interesting things about how military and the sports have been intertwined since the beginning of military and sports. So we're going to be debating a little bit of that, talking about a little bit about that every week because it's very interesting, and we got some good debate questions that will be coming out because of that, including one on Roger Staubach. There's a spoiler alert. Okay, folks, we'll see you tomorrow on the Saturday debate show, 8 to 9 with Dr. Paul and the Philly Sports Guy. Have a great Friday, folks.